Choe Yeong is one of the only two archer commanders in the game who can deal mighty heal damage, and today I'm going to be giving you an in-depth guide on Choe Yeong. Is he a good commander? Is he weak? Is he a meta garrison? Is he good for the open field? His best skills, his best pairings, his best talents, and everything you're going to need to know about him. So if you're interested in investing in Choe, maybe you just want to have an archer garrison, maybe you're an archer garrison main, or maybe you just want to consider running him on the open field, you want to stick around till the end of the video. So we're going to start off today's video by going into Choe's skills. And we're going to start off with his active skill. It is a little bit complicated, but pretty much this is how it works. For the next 10 seconds, whenever this commander heals a target, basically whenever they heal themselves, they're going to deal 80%. The percentage of this is affected by their troops' attack, 80% of the heal strength as true damage to 5 enemy targets. It's similar to every AoE. Each target's going to reduce that by 15%, and this commander is also going to mighty heal a large portion of slightly wounded units, 1400. What this is really saying, in a very simple way, is he's going to do damage whenever he heals for the next 10 seconds. So himself, and if you run him with a commander that heals on their active skill, or they heal in a different way, he's going to deal that healing as damage factor as well as taking the healing effect. So he's going to deal 80% of the healing as a 5 target AoE damage. So for example, let's say you're running him with Ramses, and Ramses triggers his healing factor here. It is a 500 healing factor. You're going to deal a 500 AoE, and it's going to be reduced by 20% before you do that damage, because it's only 80% of the damage, and it's going to be a 5 target AoE. Now, 500 damage factor in a 5 target AoE, not a very big deal, but he is going to be doing that. That's essentially what his active skill says. Simplified edition, Choe Yeong mighty heals his troops, and for the next few seconds, whenever he heals a target, he's going to deal true damage to 5 nearby enemy troops. As a reminder, true damage not affected by attacking stats, skill damage stats, but also not affected by any of your opponent's defense stats. So the only thing I think that could influence true damage is all damage. Otherwise, you can't boost true damage, but again, they can't mitigate it unless they've got an all damage reduction. And heal strength, that is pretty much just a type of healing. Moving on to Choe Yeong's second skill, this one's quite easy. It's just a very, very good stat skill. He's going to gain 30% defense. He's also going to gain 5% march speed. And whenever he's using only archer units, he's going to deal 10% more normal damage. Pretty solid skill all round. I'm pretty sure normal damage does not affect true damage, but it is still a nice thing to have, especially considering that Choe Yeong is an archer garrison, and normal damage is good if you're being swarmed and you want to have a bit more counter attack to pretty much just harm your opponents quite a bit. So pretty good second skill right there, and it's going to be a very hefty amount of stats. Moving on to the third skill, this commander's troop takes 20% less normal damage. Really, really good overall. Amazing against smite commanders. That is a very, very solid skill. Again, it's going to make you quite tanky, give you a bit more anti-swarm, and that is applicable on the open field. The second part of this skill, though, is not for the field. If this commander is serving as a garrison commander, whenever their garrison is hit with a basic attack, it has a 10% chance to negate the attacker's health and defense buffs for the next 5 seconds. That 10% can be a maximum of 20% for each time they hit. There seems like there's no reduction on this unless there is a hidden reduction. This isn't the biggest deal. I mean, it's nice. It's going to be a good thing for people who are buffing themselves, commanders who are giving themselves extra health and extra defense. But overall, it's not going to be too impactful. There aren't many commanders that boost their own defense or boost their own health or boost their own attack. So it's okay for a swarm situation when maybe they're being boosted by another commander. But generally, this isn't going to be the most overpowered thing in a garrison situation. It's just like a little niche thing. The main part of this skill is definitely that normal damage reduction, because it's going to be really solid for the open field and as a garrison. Moving on to Choe Yeong's fourth skill, if this commander's current target is a rallied army, he's going to increase the healing he receives by 45%, and whenever this commander's troop uses an active skill, the target loses a total of 10% health for 7 seconds. This can stack up to 5 times, and its duration resets whenever it gains another stack. Really, this is the best part of Choe Yeong's kit. First of all, the healing bonus is amazing because you're going to deal more mighty healing damage and more true damage. And the best part is probably the health reduction. He can get up to a 50% health reduction on a rally, which is absolutely insane. That's a ridiculously high level of health reduction. It's going to bring down even some of the strongest infantry rallies to a much more manageable level, and it's going to allow you to do quite good against them. So this is definitely quite a strong fourth skill overall, and it is probably one of the best garrison skills in the game. So for example, if you're looking to take out a part of a commander's skills and put it on another one in a Siege of Orleans KVK, this fourth skill is absolutely meta for a garrison, in my opinion. Moving on to Choe Yeong's expertise, we're going to be looking at a passive skill here. He's going to deal 25% more counterattack, which is amazing. And then if the troop has fewer units than this commander's troop, the counterattack bonus is increased by 15%. So really simply, he's going to really punish swarmers here up to a 40% counterattack bonus, especially if he is losing in this situation. So if you're being swarmed, Choe Yeong really going to punish. Even on the open field, this does apply still, so it is going to be quite a punishing expertise. It is quite a good expertise. I think it's got a lot of power in the garrison, and even on the open field, it's pretty nice. Just dealing more counterattack is always good, and it is going to make Choe Yeong an even stronger and better commander. Now, in terms of Choe Yeong's best skills, I mean, if you're going to expertise, so if you're going to run him in the garrison, just expertise him. I mean, garrison is instant expertise, otherwise just don't run him. Field-wise, I think that expertise is still pretty good because of how powerful his expertise is. If you didn't want expertise and you wanted to run him on the field, and we're going to talk about his field viability a bit later, but if you did want to run him, 5-5-5-1 is okay in my opinion, but I still think the expertise is worth it because of how strong that counterattack bonus is going to be. So I think in my opinion, Choe Yeong is kind of an expertise or go home commander, but you can probably get away with running a 5-5-5-1 commander. It could be decent, but I just don't think it's going to be ridiculously meta. Just go with an expertise in my opinion if you are going to run Choe Yeong, and again, we'll talk about his open field viability in a little bit. Now, as for Choe Yeong's best pairings, real simply, Shajar. Shajar is easily the best pairing with Choe because Choe is just a really heavy healing commander. Shajar is the only other commander in the game that does mighty healing that's going to synergize well with him. She's an archer commander. She needs to be run as a secondary. So quite simply, Choe Yeong has to be a primary. So Choe Yeong, really, you're looking at running him as a primary commander with a Shajar secondary, both on the field and in the garrison. I think Shajar is quite feasible in garrison. None of her stuff really says while on the map, besides this last bit here with the big healing factor. And while that is quite important to her kit, she doesn't generally need to be on the open field. So overall, I think that Shajar is going to be fine in the garrison. To my knowledge, it is currently the best archer garrison pairing that has been used, and it's really the only amazing pairing with Choe. Maybe Dido is an okay option. I'm not too sure about that. I'm not 100% sure. So if you do know anything about Dido and Choe Yeong as a pairing, please let me know. But to my knowledge, it isn't the best garrison, especially purely because she doesn't really have that healing factor that is going to be completely meta with Choe Yeong. So Shajar, definitely best with Choe Yeong in my opinion. And they're going to be quite a good pairing for garrison. So garrison-wise, definitely the best archer pairing right now is Shajar with Choe. Open field-wise, Choe's best pairing would also be with Shajar because there is no real other commander out there that is going to have a healing factor that he's going to need. Shajar, need to run her as a secondary so you can get access to that healing factor and the heal strength and the true damage, which means Choe Yeong, you're going to want to run him as a primary. So Choe Yeong, definitely the primary commander in this situation, and Shajar, definitely your secondary commander because you want to be able to benefit from the mighty heal and true damage. If not, she's not going to be the best pairing. So don't run her primary, definitely run her as a secondary with Choe Yeong. But on the open field, normally you'd run Shajar as a primary because you want to benefit from the direct damage factor. But specifically, when it's with Choe Yeong, you'll be able to benefit from some of that mighty heal, and it is going to be a relatively decent pairing. So Choe Yeong with Shajar, Choe Yeong always as the primary, Shajar always as the secondary, is really his only other pairing. Even some of the more meta commanders like Zulang just are not going to work very good with Choe Yeong simply because they don't have the stuff that he needs in their kit. While they do have some stats that he needs, like for example, Choe Yeong needs health, Shajar also does have health. So for example, you probably just want to run Shajar only because even commanders like Zulang, Boudica, Herman, Ashurbanipal, all these meta archer commanders just do not have the mighty heal damage and the true damage that Choe Yeong is going to benefit from. So overall, I wouldn't be touching them at all. I would mainly just be looking to Shajar as the best pairing with Choe Yeong. Now, as for the archer talent tree, quite simply, Choe Yeong doesn't have the best talents. The defense tree is pretty renowned for being average. The garrison tree is good, but it's got some flaws in it. And the archer tree is relatively decent. So really, first of all, you just want to put all your points straight up to Whistling Arrows. Reason being, it's going to be the best talent. You're going to have access to the best, like, main talent. It's good, not like fully amazing, but it's pretty good and it's going to be quite nice to have. I would also put some points into Razor Sharp, reason being Choe Yeong has no rage gain. With Shajar, he still has no rage gain, so you probably want to run them with the Razor Sharp talent. And I also went down and I got Loose Formation. Reason again, really good talent to have. Reducing skill damage is nice when you get swarmed, and it is overall going to make your garrison a little bit better. On top of this, I put some points into No Weakness. All damage reduction is nice. Some points into Spiked Armor, just so you can get to Loose Formation. The last 3 points into Burning Blood, and also into Master Armorer. Now, if this talent here, Nowhere to Turn, is available, you could consider putting the points there, but it doesn't really make sense because Master Armorer is technically slightly more stats than running Defense or Troops. So I don't think Nowhere to Turn applies to everything. I think it is only to cities because it says every time the city is attacked, but possibly it does apply to flags and forts. I don't know about that, so if you do know about that, you can put that in the comments, but I still don't think it's really feasible or important for you to get. In terms of the actual garrison talents, you're going to get Impenetrable Fortifications because it's a 6% all damage reduction, and then you're also going to get Empty Fortress Stratagem because whenever he's a commander in a garrison, he's going to deal 6% more all damage, so that is nice and a bit more anti-swarm. The rest of the garrison talents, the good stuff is further into the tree, and you have to pick up some useless talents like City Guardian or Adamantite Walls. The only other talent I would consider is Know Thy Enemy, and pretty much simply, whenever this commander is serving as a garrison, damage reduction effect is enhanced by 3% if the garrison becomes surrounded. So really, a maximum of a 9% all damage reduction if you're surrounded. That's pretty good. You could argue getting rid of some points in Master Armorer to put them into Attack All Troops, Health All Troops, and then get Know Thy Enemy. That is definitely feasible, but in my opinion, I still think that it's probably not the most important talent. Especially considering you have to get Adamantite Walls, and this is the most useless talent in the game because your Watchtower is rubbish. So overall, I think I wouldn't bother with Know Thy Enemy. There's a lot of wasted talent points to get there that could just be allocated elsewhere to give you more overall stats. In terms of open field usage, I just run this tree on Choe Yeong. I took 1 point out of Razor Sharp just so we could reach Tetsudo Formation, and then you've just got a pretty solid tree. There's a lot of damage reductions here, there's a lot of tankiness. It's not the best tree in the game. I would rather have a skill tree for the open field, but overall, this is a relatively good talent tree, and it's what I would run on the field with Choe Yeong. Pretty much hands down, I don't really think there's a way you could improve this tree very much. Maybe there's some niche thing you could do where you get rid of Razor Sharp and you go further into this tree, but really you don't have that many points. So overall, I think that this is the best way to look at running a Choe Yeong in the open field. And then obviously I showed you the garrison tree before. This is definitely the best field tree. The other tree, in my opinion, is most likely the best garrison tree, where you're able to maximize your value for each point you are using. So now this brings me to the final question. Is Choe a meta commander? And quite simply, in the garrison, he most likely is. Choe seems like a relatively strong garrison commander, purely for the fact that he is the newest and shiniest archer garrison. The fact that he's healing a lot is also really nice, and all this is going to make him quite a meta commander. That being said, we do have a cavalry rally on the way sometime within the next 5 years, because for some reason it's still not in the game. Once that cavalry rally does come out, there's a good chance Choe does take a bit of a hit to his overall effectiveness. So I think that Choe right now is the best archer garrison in the game by a pretty good margin. Him with Shajar does trade pretty good, and they're going to be a fairly solid pairing in the garrison. It's tanky, it heals a lot, it's going to trade nice, and in my opinion, it's definitely garrison meta. So if you're rallying or you're garrisoning with archers, I definitely would consider running a Choe Yeong as the garrison, purely for how strong it actually is. In terms of open field, I don't think he is the best. Simply being, while Choe Yeong's best pairing is with Shajar, Shajar's best pairing is not with Choe Yeong. Shajar trades much better with Philip, purely because they're going to be a ridiculously good pairing. They're really good. They synergize amazingly. Choe Yeong, on the other hand, he isn't the best for the field. Mighty Heal isn't the best for the field in general, and it's just going to make you trade pretty poorly, especially if you're already losing in a trade. So Choe Yeong with Shajar, it's been argued to be an okay pairing. I personally think it's usable, but it's just not Shajar's best pairing. Shajar has much stronger pairings, which can trade much better overall, that just make more sense than running her with Choe Yeong. Quite simple, Choe Yeong is a good commander, but overall just not going to be the best on the open field. If you're running a lot of archer marchers, maybe it's worth picking him up, but I think he's more of a future commander. Maybe when we see more Mighty Heal commanders, he could become a little bit better, but for now, Choe Yeong is not the best commander in the game. There's much better archer commanders out there, and ones that I would get first, like Shajar, Ashurbanipal, Herman, and Zulang. All 4 of these commanders are just going to be preferable first investment over getting a Choe Yeong, because there are just better commanders out there who are less niche, less annoying to run, and have other pairings which are going to be stronger, purely because Shajar just has a lot more pairings that are stronger than running her with a Choe. So running Choe, he's a decent commander on the open field, but he just is not the absolute meta, and there are better commanders out there. Overall, in terms of whether or not you should invest in him, quite simply, if you're garrisoning, I would do it. Garrison, he's probably going to be quite good, especially if we see another garrison that's got mighty heal factor. But in terms of open field, I would probably not invest in him unless you're making a really niche open field mutable and you're maybe running 4 to 5 archer marches. He could be feasible at that point, but even then, he's just not going to be the best commander in the game. So overall, Choe Yeong, decent commander, but just not going to be the most overpowered, and definitely not the best investment ever. Now, if you enjoyed today's video, I just want to ask you guys to please consider subscribing to the channel. The reason being, I try to make the most up-to-date archer guides I possibly can for every single archer commander that is currently in the game. So if you're interested in archer commanders, you want to be an archer main, maybe you just want to learn more about archers in general, please do consider subscribing to the channel. It's a very, very small thing that does help me out a lot, and if you are an archer main, it's one of the best things you can do. And of course, if you end up not liking my content, it's always super easy to just unsubscribe if that is what you want to do. But if you do consider subscribing, it is much appreciated. And to everyone who just subscribed, a massive thank you. And to everyone who was already subscribed, a massive thank you to you as well. Now, I just want to say I thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.